interactions respectful and also keeping them healthy. So boundaries are not ultimatums. I think a lot of people think of it that way, where it's like, oh, sorry, you're just telling me like if I don't do this, like this doesn't happen. Like that's not the purpose. The purpose of boundaries is just I want you to do this so that my relationship with you can be good. So think of it like that instead. So for instance, you have a lot of
Um,
work going on. Sorry, someone talking?
Please go ahead.
Oh, I think I just muted who I was hearing from.
Yeah.
So for instance, you have a lot of questions, or you're very stressed, sorry, you have a lot going on, but someone wants you to help them. A boundary would very much be like, I'm unable to help you right now, but maybe I could help you later. Or someone says something that hurt your feelings, you're trying to figure out like how can you say that? Very much I don't appreciate being spoken to like that. Please don't talk to me like that. I think something people also find really difficult with boundaries too is how to express boundaries. So I will probably just share something after this, kind of like a script to let you guys or help you guys be able to like have boundaries and like say no. Um, does anybody have any questions about what I just talked about before I move on? Anybody? I'm going to give it like a minute.
I think someone is using up his hand.
Oh, they are sorry. I don't really use Zoom that much. How do I see who's raising up their hand? Z, do you mind?
Like, oh, your
Um,
caller is. Um,
Oh, okay.
you can unmute yourself if you want to speak, please.
Did they forget
Oh,
they have their hands raised?
you can just go ahead. I think something is wrong with this network.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, so I'll
Yeah.
just move on. So I want to talk about
Yes.
types of boundaries. So we'll talk about that. Physical boundaries, respecting personal space, respecting physically touching other people, emotional or mental boundaries, protecting your right to your own feelings without taking responsibility for other people's emotions. Time boundaries, limiting how much time you give to others versus yourself. Material boundaries, clarifying what you're willing to share in terms of possessions, resources, money. Sexual boundaries, communicating what you're comfortable with or uncomfortable with in intimate situations. And intellectual boundaries, protecting your thoughts, your beliefs, your ideas, your opinions from being dismissed, ridiculed, or taken advantage of. Anyone have any questions about that? I know I went through that pretty fast.
We are noting them down. We are noting them down. I'm
Yep.
very sure a lot of questions will come afterwards.
Okay, got it. Okay, so signs you need to start setting effective boundaries. There's honestly so many signs, but these are typically the ones that I would say I recognize the most, especially in working with my clients. So, like Z said, this is something I specialize in. So, honestly, I would say 4 out of 5 times a week, like I am working on boundaries with a client. And so, signs that you need or signs that you probably notice that will tell you, hey, it's time to have boundaries in place is when you start to feel resentment towards people. So you have a friend, you guys are pretty close, but you're starting to notice like there's some resentment there, like they're just pissing you off for no reason, or they do something small and it just feels very big. There's an issue there. You're very tired, you're exhausted, you drank all the coffee, all the Red Bull in the world, and it's still not working. You're getting physical reactions. You're having headache, your stomach, your chest is tight, sorry, your stomach is in knots. You're very anxious about seeing certain people. You find yourself in a place where you're having to go through conversations in your head multiple times just in order to say no. So someone asks you for something, you want to say no to them, but you don't know how to say no. So you're having several conversations in your head. Okay, maybe if I say it this way, maybe if I say it that way, maybe if I say it this way, that's a problem. Another one is if you don't know how to say no. So every time someone asks you for something, you're constantly like, yes, 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 yes. Even if you're tired, even if you're overwhelmed, even if it's not something that's within your power to do, you're still saying yes. That's a problem. Your relationship with someone is very dependent on what you have to give them, and you've gotten very comfortable with that one-sided relationship. So you have a friend, you know that everything in that relationship is based off of what you're giving that friend, but you're comfortable with that anyway. You're accepting the barest minimum, even though you're giving everything. That's a problem. You're a people pleaser to the core, even when it's to your own detriment. So as long as it makes my mother happy, as long as it makes my father happy, as long as it makes this person happy, but you're miserable, it's to your own detriment, but you're still doing it anyway, that's a problem. And The most easy one to honestly take note of is if someone asks you, "Oh, so what are your boundaries?" or "What do you like and what don't you like?" or "What works for you, what doesn't work for you?" and you don't have an answer for that question, that's a very big problem. So if this
Hmm.
sound like any of you, then I think essentially what I would tell you is like it's time to figure out what your boundaries are. It's time to prioritize yourself. It's time to put yourself in positions where you're essentially able to just have healthy relationship with the people around you. That includes healthy relationship with yourself, with your family, with your friends, co-workers, your bosses. I know like something I hear a lot about, especially like back home, is very much like toxic work cultures. So maybe I'll touch a little bit on that as well.
I'm
Um,
sorry. I'm sorry to call you short. Can you please be a bit slow? It's a bit hard for people to,
that's okay. I'm sorry. I know
Yeah.
I talk fast. I am trying to be cautious, but I'll talk slower. Sorry. Okay. So basically, yeah, those are signs to know like if you don't have boundaries and how to figure out what your boundaries are. So if you guys don't mind just giving me one quick second, I just want to pull something up. And I say this because I want to pull it up because I want to give you like a step by step. But something about
Uh,
really someone not having any boundaries and then having to get one is that it's not easy. We also come from a culture that there is so much guilt tripping. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when I first started having boundaries, especially with like family and friends, it was very much a wow, you're so mean. Like, I can't believe you're treating me like this. Like, with my mom, it was very much like, my child again. Like, just very guilt tripping culture type vibes. Um, and so it does make it really hard to figure out like what are these boundaries that I even want to put in place that will be acceptable and how can I navigate it? So I always say pay attention to your feelings first and foremost. So how are you feeling about something? I know we don't, again, come from a culture that's very feelings based, but it's very important to be in tune with yourself. It's very important to ask yourself, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about that? Another thing I'll probably share after this as well. Don't know who I'll send it to, but it's probably a feelings wheel. Something to get you comfortable with being able to like understand feelings and like be able to pinpoint feelings. So pay attention to how you're feeling. If something makes you feel drained, upset, tired, uncomfortable, that's a sign that you might need a boundary there. Think about what matters to you. What makes you feel safe? What makes you feel happy? What makes you feel good? What makes you feel protected? What makes you feel comfortable? And make sure that whatever boundaries you're creating is protecting those things. I want to protect what makes me feel safe. You want to make sure that you're protecting what makes you feel happy. So, for instance, for me, something that makes me feel something that makes me feel less stressed is not working on weekends. So I'm a therapist. So a lot of people see clients on Saturdays because, people don't have work on Saturdays. People want therapy sessions on Saturdays. But I used to work on Saturdays and it used to exhaust me. So I don't do it anymore. Rather, I would work later on the weekdays. And so when I started to realize, okay, working on weekends does not work for me. It makes me tired. I decided, okay, a boundary that I'm going to set for myself is making sure that I have my Saturdays and I have my Sundays to myself, to my family, to my friends, to just do things that matter to me. And then I can give my weekdays to work. And then another thing is also just starting really small. So, especially if you're from a culture like ours where there's not a lot of direct confrontation going on, especially with older people or even people our age, like we're not necessarily people that are super confrontational. We're very much like something upsets you, you kind of just say it like, oh, that really annoyed me, that type of thing. Not to the person, but you say it to someone else or you say it to yourself. And then you kind of just move on. It's not very easy to start announcing, don't do that to me. That's my boundary. Like that's not the easiest thing. So starting small with like boundaries that aren't necessarily announced, so some that are maybe unannounced, I think will be like way less intimidating. Um, I'm trying to think of like an example of how to do that. So, okay. So for instance, you get a message from someone and that person drains you. You know that every time they message you, they want something from you. You're tired. You want to set a boundary with them. You don't want to necessarily be giving them all your energy again. A really good, easy way to do that would be, okay, this is not an urgent message. I can't think of a way to respond to this right now. Let me take a day or let me take 2 days. And then you can respond to that message at a time that works for you when you feel like you're able to assert that boundary by saying no. Essentially, protecting your energy. That's the goal. And I think we're also on the theme of like reclaiming your peace. So whatever makes you feel at peace, that's the focus. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is guilt. Guilt is tough. Like it is so, so tough. And I say this as someone who's constantly talking about this every single day, who's also constantly setting boundaries in my life every single day. As a Nigerian, it is not easy to set boundaries because the guilt will eat you up. And it's not even necessarily something that you can control because, again, it's conditioning, it's cultural. We have been conditioned, we've internalized a lot of perspectives of, okay, if I do this, it makes me this way. If I do this, it makes me a bad person. If I do this, it makes me an unkind child. So I always tell people, you need to first recognize what guilt is. Guilt is a symptom of believing that you've done something wrong, right? So essentially, when you're feeling guilty, it's because you feel like you've done something wrong. And so you need to start asking yourself these two questions, or this one question to start off. So you ask yourself, okay, what have I done wrong in this situation? You know, if you're coming up with an answer of like, what I did wrong was I told this person I couldn't do this for them, then you ask yourself the next question, what exactly about, sorry, I just heard a sound. Oh, that's someone coming in. Then you ask yourself the next question, which is, what exactly have I done wrong by telling someone that I wasn't able to do something when I wasn't able to do anything? If your answer is nothing, then that's all there is to that. You haven't done nothing and there's nothing to feel guilty about. If your answer is okay, well, maybe I said it in this way, or I didn't do it in this way, then maybe there's more to explore there. We want to use guilt not as a useless feeling or as a caging feeling, but we want to use guilt as an informing feeling. So use it as something that's telling you, like, have I done something wrong or have I not done anything wrong? And also remember, it's very possible to feel guilty even when you are doing something right. So just because it's there doesn't mean that you've done something wrong, right? You need to kind of ask yourself those questions and really delve into that feeling and try to figure out, have I done something or have I not done anything? If you come to the conclusion that you haven't done anything, like I said, what I've done hasn't harmed anyone, it hasn't been to anyone else's detriment, then you just know that your guilt is not an appropriate or helpful feeling for you at that time and it's not necessary. Something else to really keep in mind with guilt is you're not responsible for everything that someone else feels. You do something, someone feels upset about that, you're not always responsible for that. As long as you know that you haven't done anything to harm them and you haven't done it to their detriment, you're not responsible for that feeling of theirs. That is their choice. You're responsible for honoring your own needs. And sometimes that does mean other people will not be able to get their way. And sometimes that means they're upset, but that doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. You don't feel guilty because you've done something wrong. You feel guilty because you believe you've done something wrong. And so you need to check that belief. Have you really done something wrong, or are you just thinking that you've done something wrong? Someone's hand is up, so I'm going to take a question. I'm sorry, I'm just realizing I don't know how long your hand has been up for.
All right. Thank you very much for that beautiful presentation so far. And it has been, I've been enjoying it and I've gotten a lot. So I just quickly want to ask this. I remember really while I was in camp. Can you hear me, Ma?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, thank you. So while I was in camp for my doing my NYC service, so I met this particular lady. It's very cool. Like for me, I'm a youth advocate, and I'm interested in SDGs and all. So we have the same vision, and we are living by similar values. So along the way, we're cool. We're best of friends, and everything was going fine. But I realized that I started falling in love for this lady. Then I asked her out. I was not even directly asking out. I was just doing, going side here and everything. But the way the whole situation turns around and between our friends in such a way that, she was very mad at me and everything. I was not like, have I did something that have I committed crime? Have I killed someone? The way she took it so personal to an extent that, she don't even want to see me, she don't want to talk to me, she don't want to have anything to do with me. I was like, but just to ask someone out, is it a big deal there? You know, and that is one question. The second question again is that, when you're talking about setting boundaries and sometimes even within yourself, you need to, need to understand it, or you need to, there is a way you use the word, within yourself. I realize something that I'm this kind of person. I always love to be my own space. I'm an introvert, so I don't really like to relate much with people and everything like that. But then when you are trying to set up boundaries, some people believe that, you are too proud, you are this, you are that. And the thing has really been affecting me such that it's not even it's making my performance not efficient. And, in this kind of situation, what do you think, or how do you think you can tackle this kind of challenges? And so that I can be peace with myself because I always think. I'll be like, oh, am I not doing the right thing? I just because of the way the society influence on me, I'll be like, am I not doing enough? Am I too proud? Am I doing this? Am I too that? I just want to know how you think I can tackle that. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. I'll answer the first one, then I'll move on to the second one. So first one, it's tough just because I understand both sides. So I understand your side of like, okay, we're getting along, we have similar values. I feel like I could see something here. But I also understand the other person's side of maybe they were just really seeking a friendship and they felt like you sort of asking them out, well, in that indirect way was sort of crossing a boundary. And that brings me to what I've been saying, where it's like we need to be clear on what our boundaries are and we need to let other people know how we want to be treated in the same way that they let us know how they want to be treated. So I would say that situation is a bit tough because it sounds like she wasn't clear about her boundaries, but neither were you about yours. Like, neither were you clear about your intentions. So, yes, you didn't do it directly, but you're doing it indirectly. It might have helped if you were clear about your intentions. You might have just gotten a clearer response. On her end, she probably didn't know how to set accurate boundaries to also let you know how she wanted to navigate your relationship moving forward. So, if you guys wanted an example of why you should have clear boundaries and why you should be clear about your intentions, that's one. Because this is what happens when we start having our relationships turn sour or they become really bad. And when you really think about it, it really is just because of that inability to be clear on boundaries and where we lie. And then the other question, we come from a culture that's very much collectivist. So what that means really is like we're very focused on like everyone around us. So like whereas like Western cultures are a bit more individualistic, like the focus is always on me, 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 me. A good way, honestly, to live a life of boundaries and a life of healthy relationships with people is having a combination of both. And a combination of those two looks like choosing yourself, but also recognizing the importance of having people around you. So even as an introvert, it's fine to not want to always be around people, but community is necessary. Like to have a good life, to have good relationships, to have a healthy life, you need to have a good community. Like you need to surround yourself with the people that you share good values with, people that you care about, or people that you find like you get along with a lot. So the way that I would say that you should approach that is really not approaching life from a perspective of I'm an introvert, don't really want people around me too much, so I'm not necessarily going to engage with people. I think not even just because of how people perceive you, honestly, but just for the healthiness of you as a person, it's important to create a community of people that surround you, that you care about, or people that surround you that you share good values with. So I would say on that end, yes, respect your introvertness, but also recognize the need for a community and try to build that. And I could go into like a longer tangent on how to do that, but this is not a therapy session. So I would just say, like, very much the easiest way to not introvert, sorry, the easiest way to basically combine the individualistic and collectivist culture of both sides is one, have those boundaries for yourself, take care of yourself, like take care of your needs, do what makes you happy. And then also recognize that community is also a way of living. Community is a necessity for living. And so have those friends that you're close with, have those friends that you hang out with a bit more, but recognize it doesn't have to be everybody. I hope that helps.
Thank
Any other
you very
questions?
much.
You're welcome. No? Okay, so,
Hussainat, sorry, please, before you continue, this is Fatima. I
oh,
think
hi.
Ariza's phone went off. So I would like to ask, I don't know how long your presentation is going to continue, but I don't know if you have a slide for it. You probably show the slide so we can, because I think people are really struggling to go with you, the way you talk fast and all that. So can you share your
Am I still
screen? Is
talking?
there a slide for it, for your
So this is
presentation?
actually I don't have a slide. I do this every day, so it's very much just in my head, but I could probably
Okay,
share like some resources with you guys, just like
okay.
things to like help that maybe are talking about what I'm talking about now as well. And I'm so sorry. I really am trying to talk slow. I've been told I talk fast, so I'm not really trying to talk slow. I don't know if it's because of my accent, but um, if anyone can't hear me, please just like tell me. Like I'll be happy to like repeat myself.
All
And I'm
right, no
almost done
problem.
anyway. So like I'll take a lot of questions at the end.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Of course. And then lastly, just want to talk about how to enforce boundaries. So I've talked about how to set those boundaries, how to set boundaries without feeling guilty, how to figure out what your boundaries are in the first place, what boundaries are, the signs to recognize that you need to start setting boundaries. And lastly, I would just talk about how to enforce them. So I feel like enforcement sounds like a very like strong word. So let's talk about how to just like maintain and sustain them. First things first, you want to be clear. You want to make sure that you're clear and direct. And that's what I was saying when I was responding to that question, where it's like letting people know what those expectations are is important. Like no one can read your mind. So if you want something to be a certain way or you want to be treated a certain way, express that. Secondly, you want to use I statements. So keep the focus on how you feel, not on the action. So someone's always giving you a lot of work. You're like, oh, you're always dumping stuff on me. That's not really effective. You want to try by using an I statement. So like, I feel really tired or I feel really overwhelmed when I'm asked to take on these things last minute. Is there a way that you can give these tasks to me at an earlier time? Is there a way that you can recognize that I don't have the capacity to take this at this time? So very much just like using I statements. Want to make sure that you're kind, but also try to be firm. Setting boundaries is not about being mean. It's not about being harsh. It's not about being like, like I don't want to swear on here, but very much like, oh, I don't care about what you think. Like, this is what I want. Like, that's not how it works. Be kind, but be firm. So, firmness and like, I'm standing on this. This is what I want. But kindness and like, but I'm going to relate to you very politely to the point where it's effective. And remind them. People forget sometimes. You tell a friend, like, oh, I don't like this. And then they forget. Remind them, like, remember, I told you I don't like this. Please don't forget to do that again. A gentle reminder. Sometimes people forget. So give people chances. Set a consequence and stand by those consequences. And this is where many of us falter. This is where many of us find this really hard. You need to have boundaries or you need to have consequences for when people try to violate your boundaries. So I've set a boundary. I've made it really clear, but they're not respecting it. So let's use parents as an example. You tell parents like, oh, I don't really want to talk about this anymore, right? Like you're setting about, let's say it's your relationship status. You're single. They want you to get married. They keep bringing it up. Very much say, okay, I think I would like it if we stop discussing my relationship every single time we met. I understand your concerns, but I'm working on it, right? And then you meet them again and they do it again. And then you meet them again and they do it again. You have to start to recognize, set a consequence. Because one thing about people that try to violate your boundaries, if they try it once and they're able to actually go through with it, they have no reason to stop. They're just going to keep doing it anyway. So set a clear consequence and stand by that consequence. So I told you I don't want to talk about this, but you're doing it again. So I'm like, okay, if we continue discussing my relationship status, like I don't like it, I think I'll just need to excuse myself for a bit, or let me go to the room and go. I'm gonna go to the room. I have something to do, or let's do something instead, right? Just making sure that like you're making it clear that what you're asking for, you expect that to be respected, and if it's not going to be respected, then you're not going to entertain the conversation again. And all of that brings me to the 10-step guide to setting healthy boundaries. And like I said, I will share this with you guys. First things first, know your rights. Second, know your limits. Third, find your core values. Fourth, listen to your emotions. Like I was saying, feelings are important. Fifth, respect yourself. Six, respect others. Seven, be assertive. Eight, consider the long-term implications of not having boundaries and having those boundaries. 9, establishing those boundaries, and 10, setting those healthy boundaries. Just remember, maintaining your boundaries and being able to sustain them is the guide to living a healthy life. That's the only guide that you need to have healthy relationships with people. You want to make sure that you have healthy boundaries. When I talk about boundaries, I don't just talk about having like, porous boundaries or rigid boundaries. And essentially what that means is you have boundaries that are just too much or you have boundaries that are too little. You want to make sure that you find that sweet spot of that healthy boundary place and stick to that. And I think that is all I have to say. I'll take questions now for the next couple of minutes. If anyone has any questions or anything, please shoot them. Oh, sir, I probably don't worry about like trying to catch every single thing I said. Like I said, I'll send you guys a thing for it to be able to keep track of most of what I said, or at least a bunch of what I've said. How do I get the person that raised up their hand to speak? Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay, got
Femi
it.
Do has a question. I mean, he or she's raising her hand. Can you unmute yourself to ask a question, please?
All right. Can you hear me, please?
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for this beautiful interview. The presentation has been exciting, and sincerely, I've learned a lot, and my my
I'm
my
glad.
daughters are full. Yeah. So the question is this: I
Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you. Oh.
oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes.
All right. Thank you. So I said the question goes this way. I noticed that the last time I was happy with myself, like really happy and happy with everything I was doing, the way my life is moving and everything was 2016, 2017, before I got to university. You know, since I got to university, graduating from school, and I noticed that everything, like my life has not really remained the same way it is before. Like I'm this kind of person. I'm overthinking. It's not going. I was just feeling depressed of myself many a times. But I realized that before going to the university days, I was very happy within myself. Everything was no, I wasn't seeing this life in like I was feeling very simple. I was taking it step one after the other. I wasn't rushing myself and everything was cool and going well. But since I finished and so I'm trying to reflect back to days, back to those days, before I got to university, see what are those things I was doing that was making myself that reducing the conflict within myself, you know. But I'm still finding it difficult to reflect back and to realize some of those things I was doing there that makes my life, look more meaningful and enjoyable to me.
Okay. So a really big thing to keep your life, or at least to keep yourself sort of like on the path of like happiness and fulfillment, is your values, like knowing your values and living in alignment with your values. So what I would suggest is doing a lot of values work. And so what that looks like is like one, figuring out what your values are, two, looking at the life that you're living now, see if it is according, like if it's in alignment with those values that you have. So like this is the type of life I want to be living, but this is the type of life I'm living. Do these things correlate? If they don't correlate, then you know that there are changes that need to be made. So you need to start asking yourself, okay, what are changes I can make to then live in alignment with my values? And for a lot of us, we're going to find obstacles with that. So you also want to address that, where it's like, okay, this is an obstacle to this. This is an obstacle to this. How can I address these obstacles? So that's the best suggestion I can give, is figure out what your because again, values also change as life goes on. You were younger then, probably just had less stress, less to deal with, less responsibilities, probably easier. But now you're older. Now you need to figure out what your core values are. You need to make sure that you're living in alignment with those core values. And then, yeah, that should ideally help you feel happier.
All right,
Okay, I
thank you
got a
very much.
question. Of course, you're welcome. Can couples set boundaries, or is setting boundaries healthy in marriage? Oh, 1000%. I think everyone should have boundaries in marriage, in relationships, in friendships, in child and mother, father relationships. Boundaries are necessary for every single relationship. I'm married, definitely have boundaries in my marriage. And again, boundaries look different for everyone. So of course you might find a couple that says, oh, like this is the boundary that we have. And then another couple is like, oh, this is the boundary that we have. Like it looks very different, but it is necessary. So yes. Any other questions? Also, if you guys wanted to ask me something that wasn't about boundaries, feel free as well. Um, but yeah, just any questions. It could be about boundaries, could be about anything else, anything mental health, really. That's what I know. So if it's along those lines, I can answer.
Thank you for saying that. I would like to ask that what advice do you have for people pleasers? Let me put it that way. Like they want to be good to everybody. I mean, I just want to be in everybody's good book. Like, what do you have to say about that? Even why they're inconveniencing themselves, why they are trying to go out of their way when it is not okay for them to do that, but they just want to be good. and eventually people will still talk about you, whether you're good or not. So what do you have to say about that?
I think a lot of what I have to say is the last thing you said, which is like, regardless of how you move, like people are still gonna have things to say. But I think most importantly for people pleasers, it's almost always two things. It's a lot of like trauma. So like people pleasing is a survival technique that we build up in response to trauma, especially when we're younger. So there's probably some childhood trauma there that you might want to explore and like work through. There's probably some self-esteem issues there as well to focus on. I tell people all the time, like, you need to respect yourself enough. And if you respect yourself enough, you will 1000% have boundaries. So, people pleasers, I don't put a lot of blame on you because I understand like it is a survival like technique that you do build up in response to trauma. But at the same time, you also need to respect yourself. So, like, get the self-esteem up, get the self-respect up, get your self-worth up, and you'll be happy. And like she said, people will talk regardless. So like, please don't focus your life on other people and what pleases them. Sorry, I see stuff going on in the chat, but I don't really know what's being said. Oh, that's funny. Thank you. I appreciate that. If anyone has
Uh,
a question, please go ahead.
I want to
I
ask
think
this last question. Can you hear
Mhm.
me?
okay.
The
Yes.
question that someone asked, can couples set boundaries or is settling boundaries healthy in marriage? Do you think is applicable to, let me say, our culture or let me say, generation that we have presently? Do you think is applicable to us that setting boundaries in marriage is a normal thing?
Is it a normal thing? No, but is it a necessary and healthy thing? Absolutely. I think a lot of things are not necessarily normal in our culture. Like, honestly, even me doing the job I do, I don't really think it's that normal in our culture. Like, I remember, like, it was a lot of like, but this is what I want to do, like with my parents and everything, to honestly actually be able to do what I'm doing. So I think a lot of things are not normal, but one thing I always try to like remind everyone of is like culture evolves, right? And so yes, this is not something that's necessarily normalized, but it doesn't stop it from becoming something that's normalized moving forward. So yeah, we might not have done this before. And honestly, yeah, like I don't think a lot of like older Nigerians necessarily will necessarily have boundaries in their relationships, but that doesn't stop us from now implementing it, especially now that we know the importance of like actually having them. I think a lot of times, especially with me at work, people come in, couples, individuals, and it's very much like, this is what's going on for me, and I can't figure out how to sort it out. And then the more we talk, I'm very much like, oh, this is just a boundary issue. Like, we don't necessarily come from a culture that honestly even discusses what boundaries are. It's not actually something that's in our vocabulary. So it's not normal, but I think the more you learn as a person and the more like you evolve and the more you grow, like it's important to recognize like just because it's not normal or just because it hasn't been normal doesn't mean that we don't get to now make it normal.
Oh, I think
Uh, please, I don't know if you can take question, ma.
I can. That's fine. I'm here for like another 15 minutes, so it's good.
Thank you very much, and it has been amazing because this section is something I've been looking forward to. Well, personally, I understand the fact that I need to set boundary in my life and so that I can strategize my whole. Thing. So the question is, how can I cultivate a growth mindset to prioritize my own needs and boundaries?
Okay. Well, that's a really good question and also a hard question to answer. But let me try to give you a blueprint. There's a book called Set Boundaries, Find Peace. And that's the first book I recommend to anyone that I meet that doesn't have boundaries or is looking to set boundaries or is trying to figure out how to set boundaries. And the reason why I recommend it is because it does a great job of breaking it down throughout that book. And I say that because a lot of what implementing boundaries, there's a lot of things to work through. You need to work through what your values are. You need to work through what you like. You need to work through what you don't like. You need to work through boundary violations. You need to work through setting consequences for those boundary violations. And then you need to work through people's responses to those boundaries. You also need to work through guilt that's going to come with those boundaries. So it is a lot of things. And that's why I'm always like, it's not the like, yes, I'm sitting here, telling you guys, hey, have these boundaries, do this, do that, but it's not really the easiest thing to set culturally, but also like mentally in our culture. Like in our environment, even like in our relationships, like we're not from a culture that's very accepting of boundaries. And so it does take a lot of work to be able to, and a lot of work, also a lot of like infusion, I would say. And that's why I was saying earlier, like individualistic and collectivist cultures, you need to put it together. So like it's going to be different for everyone, you know, and it's going to be hard, right? Like the first time you're setting it, like they might not take it too well, they might not necessarily appreciate it, but in the long run, honestly, like I promise, like there's nothing healthier than having boundaries, healthy boundaries with people. Like it really does do so much good for your relationships. So I will type the book here right now so
Okay,
that you
okay.
can get it. Um, And I mean, if you guys have listened to everything I have to say, honestly, she's also a therapist, more advanced. I think she's like been in the game for much longer. So definitely more detailed, definitely does a better job of breaking it down. But honestly, like my first reference to everyone who wants to learn about boundaries is that for sure. What will you do if you're trying to set boundaries for your friends, but they don't comply with it? Do you have to stop talking to them or what? So honestly, I don't really give people, or I don't really tell people what to do because that's not what a psychotherapist does. But I will tell you to reflect on that question yourself. That's not really a question that I have the answer to, it's a question that you have the answer to. So, like we talked about boundaries and we talked about consequences and we talked about violations. You have a friend, right? They don't listen to what you're saying. They're not complying with your boundaries, which means they're not respecting you. They're not respecting your wants. They're not respecting your needs. They don't respect you as a person. Is that a friend you want to keep is my question. And I'll tell you to reflect on that. And then you should have an answer for yourself. I think there was a question I missed up there. Oh, come again. Oh, sorry. So I was saying, when you have a friend that's not complying with your boundaries, essentially what that means is they don't respect you. They don't respect your needs. They don't respect your wants. They don't actually respect you as a person. Because if you respect someone, when they tell you that they want this or they want that, you be like, okay, I respect you enough to be cognizant of that and to act in the way that you want me to act, to be a friend to you in the way that you want me to be a friend to you. And so if you have a friend and you've told them, hey, this doesn't work for me, I don't like this, but then they don't care. They just keep doing it and they keep doing it and they keep doing it. Then I have two questions for you. What does that tell you about how your friend sees you? That's one. And then two, when you answer that first question, then ask yourself, what does me wanting to maintain this friendship say about me? I hope that makes sense. So
Alright.
the answer to this question is in your hands. You want to make sure, and this is a lot of what psychotherapy is, where it's like, I can answer the question for you, sure, but I want you to learn how to respond to these situations on your own. So like you ask yourself, you have a friend that's not respecting you. What is it about that friendship that is of value to you that you're keeping? Right? Like, is there some other value somewhere that like you're enjoying about that friendship? Does that value trump the fact that they don't respect you? Like, ask yourself those questions. And whatever your answer is, that is the way that you should approach that friendship. I think I missed the question
Thank
above.
you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I don't think there is more question. I'm trying to check the there is no
No, I think
question
there was a
there
question
again.
about marriage or couples or something, like if setting
Okay,
boundaries
I
gets
think
you in marriage or something like that.
yeah, I think I saw a question like someone asked that what about if setting boundaries, okay, what if setting boundaries gets you into a big trouble in marriage? What kind of boundary can couples keep? Can you break it down?
So, I mean, if boundaries are trouble, then it's one or two reasons. It's either you're not communicating it properly or your partner is not necessarily in support of that boundary. And so you need to figure that out. Like if it's communication, you want to communicate a bit more clearly. If it's your partner not being understanding of that boundary, then it's time to like ask yourself, like, okay, or ask them, sorry, what about me having this boundary doesn't work for you? Like, what is making you upset about this? And then let them share, and you can have a more informed discussion then. if it's a thing, if you do have that deeper conversation and it comes down to like your partner just doesn't care that that is something that you want, then that speaks more to the type of person that you're with and what they think about your needs and your wants. So same thing with that friendship. Why is your partner not respecting what your needs are? Why is your partner not respecting what your wants are? Those are the kind of questions I would be asking. And then what kind of boundary can couples keep? I mean, the exact same type of boundary we talked about. So like financial boundaries, in-law boundaries, family boundaries, conflict boundaries. Like how do we want to argue? What is fair in a fight? What is not fair in a fight? What are our fighting rules? Family and in-law boundaries. How much influence do we want our extended family to have? How much involvement do we want, other people to have in our relationship? Financial boundaries. How are we spending money? How are we sharing money? How are we earning money? How are we splitting money? What else can I think of? Communication boundaries. How can we speak to each other? What is good for our communication? What is bad for our communication? What is off limits? Can we swear? Can we not swear? Can we use insulting words? Can we not use insulting words? Again, everyone's different. Um, Maybe physical boundaries. How comfortable are you with this, right? Like some people are like, oh, I love cuddling. Some people are like, I need my space to sleep. So like what works for us physically? What kind of boundaries are we okay with? Emotional boundaries. How do we want to make sure that we're respectful of each other's feelings? We're respectful of each other's emotional space. We're respectful of each other's emotional safety, right? How can we make sure that we're putting that in place? Um, Maybe even sexual boundaries where it's like these are things I'm comfortable with in bed, these are things I'm not comfortable with in bed, these are things I'm willing to explore, these are things I'm not willing to explore. So I mean, honestly, so many types of boundaries exist, and couples can have so many different types of boundaries too. It really just depends on like what works for everyone.
Uh, all right, thank you very much, Mike. It has been amazing. And today I still have one more question to ask, but there's no time again.
That's
So,
fine.
so
No
we have,
worries.
but then I don't know if you can share with us your LinkedIn, your name on LinkedIn, Facebook, so that probably when maybe we can reach out to you and you know, on social
So
media.
I don't use LinkedIn. I don't even know if you can find me on LinkedIn. I think I deleted my account like recently because I don't use it that much. But I do have like an Instagram for my work, which I don't really use as much. But if you DM me, I will see it. I just don't really post that much anymore. I'm too busy. But when I actually let me do it right now, so like everyone still gets the. I'll send what the Instagram page is. So like if anyone
Okay.
wanted to reach out or anything, I'll be happy to like answer any questions.
I will definitely
And
reach out, man. Because I have a lot of questions.
sounds good. And if you guys do, if you guys go on that page too, actually, a lot of what I wanted to send about boundaries, I think are on there. So if you just like scroll down to like, I think there was a week I did stuff on boundaries, you'll like find a lot of answers. I know I also promised to send an emotions, feelings, wheel, and chart. So I'm gonna add that to the chat right now. And essentially what that chart and like wheel is about is just like different types of emotions. And I usually just send it to people that I don't necessarily feel like are super in tune with their feelings or are not super in tune with like how to describe or pinpoint exactly what they're feeling at certain times. So that is something that's really helpful to just get you acclimatized with like different types of feelings that exist. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything from my end. And if anyone doesn't have any questions, then I think that wraps today up for me. And I'm really sorry if I talk too fast for anyone. I really did try to slow down. So I hope that helped.
Well, it was an amazing section, man. It was amazing, sincerely, and we really
Thank you.
appreciate. So, I want everyone to appreciate Madam Hussainat. She really did amazingly well, and we appreciate it. Thank you for coming, and because it's a privilege for us to have you here and to have you talking to us tonight. And yeah, we really appreciate, and we say God bless you. Please let's appreciate
Thanks, guys.
So thank you very much, Ma, and we look forward to see you some other times. And because we have a lot of knowledge that we're still going to like we know that we still have a lot that to share with us, and we look forward to that. Thank you very much, man. We really appreciate, and God bless you, man.
Sorry, I was trying to like everyone's message, but it was coming in too much. So I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for having me. I was actually really happy to like be here. And like I usually don't do this. Like my friend was on my neck. So but I am happy that I did this. It was fun getting to like share stuff and like talk and answer questions. So happy to return whenever. And yeah, thank you guys for having me. And thank you for the compliments on how I speak. I appreciate that too. Absolutely. Okay, well, I'm gonna head out, right? I think that's fine. I can head out.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Well, bye everyone. Take care.
Bye.